Hi, I'm Tim. He's Josh. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Well, did you get everything you wanted for Christmas, Hanukkah, Festivus, and whatnot? Wiccans, I don't know the name, but I'm sure it was lovely. Of course you didn't. And that's why you need to check out our new website at thewatchbox.com. Once you trade in the detritus and disappointment of your holiday season, you'll be locked and loaded for the watch you really wanted on our website. Check out my JLC section, fight me for our new arrivals. It's fast, it's fun, it's a million times better than what we had, and it is the standard of the industry. Josh, what are you wearing tonight?
Old trusty watch here. Let's see if we can get some sort of wrist shot. This is the PAM 380. 3-day manual wind movement. I have it on the black croc strap, which I've been enjoying for the last, I don't know, say month or so. This strap, it's got the OP logo on the front. It's one of the lower priced Panerais. In my opinion, it's one of the best values. It holds a lot of value too. If you look at them on the secondary market, you don't see a huge drop. It has what they call like the sausage or the painted dial. And it's a watch I really love. I'm debating whether I should trade it towards something else, which we were talking about possibly getting a Rolex, which I have my mind set on something, but if we trade a few watches, maybe we get something different.
I feel like what you really, really want, though, you really want a Rolex, but you really, really want an FP Journe.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can say that about a lot of my clients, too, but yeah, that's definitely the case.
More on that in a moment, guys. Welcome to everyone, by the way. I'm going to call you guys out in the chat box as I see you. I'm wearing my Grand Memovox. It's a perpetual calendar.
That's cool.
It's an alarm. It's platinum. It's a limited edition from 2001 that proves the classics never die. Blue was cool back then, and blue ain't through today. This one's more of a slate blue, though, and a beautiful sunburst. It's got the Kurt Claus perpetual calendar module invented by IWC, but in a JLC application. They nicely separated it from the crown so you can't accidentally set your watch ahead several months. Let me do a sound off since it's also a Memovox. I may as well. I'd feel wrong. I swear it's that loud in person. All right, guys, welcome. Matt Foster, Shannon joining us from Germany. I see Clive, I see JBO Surf joining us from Adelaide, Australia. Aria K, I see Suguru Nishioka, welcome. I can see that we've got a friend from Belgrade, too. Welcome, Sasha. And Stanley from Hong Kong. Thank you for getting up early with us, Stanley. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the watches that have come out at the tail end of 2018. Look ahead to 2017, sorry. Fast forward there, guys. My apologies. But some of the tail end 2017 watches, and look ahead to 2018. At the same time, we're going to play this or that, and we're going to play it at the top of the shelf. Okay, this or that, independence. Richard Mille RM11 versus FP Journe Centigraphe F. I'm going to run through what they are, and then Josh is going to pick his favorite, the one he would want for his own wrist. Okay, so that's the Richard Mille RM11, and that is the Centigraphe F. So the RM11 is a flyback chronograph. Technically, it's the RM11 automatic flyback chronograph Felipe Massa. Got all of that? Start with a short name and then make it long. It's a watch that came out originally in 2007 at Basel World, and it's arguably the watch that made Richard Mille what it is today. Yeah. Something expensive but accessible enough that they could sell a large number, and possibly the basis for more limited editions than any watch in history. Titanium grade 5, 50 millimeters by 40 millimeters wide, 16 millimeters thick. This one features the signature tonneau case of Richard Mille, which means it actually wears fairly compact despite its size. I can wear this. It's delivered on a hybrid textile strap with a interesting leaf spring deployant clasp, so a strap with a clasp. A bracelet option exists, but for our purposes, we're going to ignore it because it costs $65,000 by itself.
Kind of sucks also.
Yeah, it's not that great. Keep it on the strap, guys. Beautiful machine-inspired open dial. I have to admit the finish on this one is rather industrial. It's nicely executed, but it's not artisanal. 50 meters water resistant. This isn't one for diving or swimming deep, but it is highly shock resistant by means of elastomers that mount the movement to the case. Now, it's the RM11 caliber, which is actually a combination of Richard Mille original elements, grade 5 titanium plates and bridges, a Vaucher manufacturer base caliber with a 50-hour automatic power reserve, and an annual calendar from Dubois de Praz. Yes, the watch is an annual calendar with a grand date indicator, a month indicator, and it's a flyback chronograph to boot. All of that with the variable inertia winding rotor that allows someone, not the owner, but someone, to set the winding efficiency of the watch to suit. $115,000 US, as you see it, Josh.
Cheap.
Again, that's without the $65,000 titanium bracelet.
Let's have a $180,000 watch on a bracelet. Let's do that.
Well, of course. I mean, the bracelet by itself is almost the cost of our next option.
Yes.
Okay. FP Journe Centigraphe F. This is a watch that was released not too long after the original Centigraphe, but the FP Journe Centigraphe F is 40 millimeters in platinum. It is a full platinum bracelet model. This is usually an option at FP Journe, but the Centigraphe F is always delivered on a bracelet first. With a double deploying clasp, it weighs a ton, although it is a nice slim watch at just under 11 millimeters thick on the wrist. Dial crafted from actual Ferrari paint. A can of paint was literally passed from Jean Todt, former GM of Scuderia Ferrari, to his friend and compatriot, FP Journe of France, and that can of paint, a decade later, is still the basis for each one of these watches. Still sub-registers in black gold. Again, Ferrari paint, black gold registers, yellow center hands, and the same rose gold caliber 1506 that you see on the conventional Centigraphe, 80-hour power reserve, manual wind, chronograph with a foudroyant able to measure 1/100th of a second. This is both a boutique exclusive and an application piece. So you have to go to the boutique, and then they have to let you buy it. The good news is, and it's kind of the opposite of the Massa, philosophically speaking, which has been something of a bestseller for Richard Mille. The good news is the watch actually retails for $84,000. And here's why it's good news. The Centigraphe in platinum costs about $63,000 US. To buy the bracelet costs about $50,000. Get them both in this application piece, and you pay $84,000. I love economies of scale.
Makes sense.
Which one do you want?
Ooh, okay. All right. So, so I've actually handled both these watches, and we've actually seen the, I guess it would be the first iteration of this on the man's wrist himself.
That's correct.
I think when you and I were in Geneva and we met FP himself, he was wearing this watch at dinner, and yeah, it was something to be seen. I don't think he had it fully sized, honestly. It was like flying around his wrist. He was just like...
And that one was interesting because that one actually had the Scuderia shield on the dial.
That's right, which the normal production ones, or I guess these application pieces, do not have.
Yeah, you still get the red chrome, that's what they call it, the red chrome dial with the black gold registers, but you don't get the Scuderia shield on the dial. That's a series of 3, of which 2 have been made. Yeah. The first is worn by FP Journe. It's his watch. His watch. Right. The second is on the wrist of Jean Todt, who actually helped to inspire the original Centigraphe and acts as sort of the patron of the ICM, the charity to which all surplus profits of the Centigraphe sales actually accrue. And then the third one, unbuilt, is destined for Michael Schumacher once his obligations to the Mercedes-Benz AMG F1 program, he's still considered to be a friend of the brand. Once that expires and he moves back into the world of Scuderia Ferrari, when he comes back to his true home, the third one will be made for him. Right,
so it's got a lot of presence here, and it's got a lot of history, and it's got a lot of meaning to the brand, this watch specifically. And I'll say this, this watch, properly sized on your wrist, unlike the way FP wears it, is actually well balanced and extremely comfortable. If I compare it to another watch that I know with a full platinum bracelet, which would be, I guess, like the offshore. There's the platinum offshore, which is, I mean, the 5-pounder, I guess, is what we dubbed it.
I would say maybe the Daytona in platinum.
Okay, the Daytona. So it's going to be similar to wearing a Daytona in platinum, though it sits a little thinner on the wrist, so it's going to be a little bit more balanced. So, and I think somebody in the chat box was asking about, you know, how it wears in platinum. The watch. This watch properly sized wears very well balanced on the wrist. So if we're comparing that watch with a watch another watch that we've handled many times, we've seen it more often, I guess, in our watch and want days in Florida than I have seen it recently. The RM11, which it's funny you mentioned that there's more special editions of this this watch than anything else. So anytime anyone asks me how much to pay, you know, I could pay for their RM11, I go, okay, which one? You got to send me a picture because there's a million different versions. The watch is cool. Total different settings, right? So if you're wearing this in Vegas, if you're going to Vegas to go party, it's the Richard Mille without a doubt, because you know, people are going to know what you have. If you're wearing this watch because you love watches and you love, you know, watchmakers and you like the idea of having a piece of the man himself with you,
yes,
then it's FP Journe. And for me, I don't often go to Vegas. Miami's the closest I get to Vegas, and I'd have to go with the Journe.
Even in our local gambling oasis, Atlantic City, New Jersey, we're in Philadelphia now. Again, the RM11 gets instant recognition, largely because it's a $100,000 Richard Mille that looks like a $500,000 Richard Mille. But the bottom line is, if you want something that represents the undilute vision of a single man, it's the Centigraphe. If you want something that's more complicated, actually the RM11 is. It's automatic winding, it's got that variable inertia rotor, it's a flyback chronograph, it's shock resistant, it's an annual calendar, but what it's not, I think, is heartfelt. It's important to note that though compatriots and both French, FP Journe is a watchmaker, Richard Mille is an executive.
Right.
He's a businessman, and I think that's reflected in the character of these two watches.
And very good businessman, by the way. I mean, selling $180,000 titanium or annual calendar chronographs.
Yeah, outside the world of Patek Philippe and Rolex right now, guys, these are the two hottest brands on earth.
It's true.
Okay, so question coming from Clive, asking, what's it like selling Rolex to wizards on TV, on ESPN and TMZ?
You know what? I'll tell you this. Been working with John Wall for about a year or so. Really nice guy. He's actually got a really great collection of watches, which I've helped him kind of curate. Did not expect that whatsoever. I didn't even realize the video was being taken until afterwards. Super cool. All those guys were astonished at this gift. I had spoken to one of the players who had been in the league for since 2005, and I asked him, have you ever seen anybody give a gift like this? He said, without a doubt, no. A lot of these guys don't even, like some of the young guys, the rookies, they've never even had a Rolex or even been able to handle one. So, when you think of NBA players, you think of, multimillionaires, rich guys, playboys. A lot of these guys are young guys on their first contract. They're making, an executive salesperson or something like that would be making. So good money, not insane money, not FU money to wear Richard Milles and things. So it was a great experience. It was even better that it was on ESPN and I got to recognize that way. But it was
You're
super.
a celebrity now.
Well, I got 10 seconds of fame and now it's
TMZ.
done. TMZ did call me. Didn't give him any information. There's nothing really to say. I mean, everything's on the video, and I think it was a really cool thing that John did for his teammates. Obviously, it wasn't cheap, hard-earned money. He did spend there, and they, one of the guys mentioned that this is a lifetime gift, and it's the truth. When you give a Swiss watch, a well-made watch, to somebody as a gift, that's what you're giving them, a lifetime gift. And when you give somebody like something like this, like an iconic piece, like the president, I mean, that's something that's going to be passed down. These guys are keeping this forever.
He gave them Rolex presidents?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, you didn't. Tim doesn't pay attention to social media.
Yeah, right.
No, yeah. So he.
What do I know about online?
Everybody, date
promotions?
840s. Yeah, yellow gold, rose gold, and white gold date 840s was for his whole team.
Good stuff. I once heard Randy Johnson bought a Rolex for his catcher after his perfect game, but buying the whole team Rolex, guys, you got to remember, if you're not familiar with U.S. basketball, guys coming out of a college hoops program, and Josh says these are a lot of young players on their first contract. College hoops is enforced austerity. You may have million-dollar potential. Like, if you allowed someone like LeBron, when he was pre-NBA, to accept sponsorship, he would have had sponsorship when he was a child. He would have been a millionaire before he was drafted. In college hoops, there are strict regulations on the kind of gifts and payments you can accept, and these guys are coming out of that program and now being gifted Rolex. So
yeah, 6 months into their first rookie contract, a few of the guys on the team are like, well, everybody was astonished. And yeah, it was amazing. It was great to be part of that. It was super cool that John decided to shout me out, and obviously I got a little bump on my social media. I got a few people reaching out. It was a cool experience for me. But it wasn't about me. It was about it was about the watches. It was about John. It was about his guys and the holiday spirit, gift giving, all that stuff.
Yeah, when TMZ finally shows the video footage of the obscure guys who drive the second car in Formula E, that's when you'll see me.
There you go.
Okay, but that said, if you want to follow me full-time, before I'm famous, check me out on Instagram, where I am Tim_Masso. I'm updating every day, and if you comment in one of my daily posts on the day I post it, I will always respond. I do my best to interact in real time on Instagram. I'm chattier than most, and I try to add context to the photos I throw up. I've got a really cool vintage Reverso Seconde Centrale, co-signed by Favre Loiba, that I just posted last night. check that out. And again, Tim_Massa on Instagram. What are you, Josh?
I'm at Mr. Thanos, Mr. Thanos, and yeah, Tim will give you a full paragraph. I'll hit you with maybe an emoji or so. So if you want some real response and some real interaction, hit Tim_Massa, all right?
Yeah, that's right. And comment below this video once it goes up and it posts, and again, I'll do my best to interact, so comment in the threads below. Okay, new watches, the last licks for the year 2017. Let's open up with one I've always loved, now available with guilloche dial. It's the Armin Strom Mirrored Force Resonance Guilloche. Okay, you remember this watch from 2016, very cool, well, coupling spring concept, taking the resonance idea that was pioneered in wristwatch format by FP Journe, adding a coupling spring that kind of changes the interaction of the escapements from a pure resonance to more of a mechanically coupled resonance, but the system works by all accounts. Now, it's a 43.5 millimeter steel case, 13 millimeters thick. What sets this one apart is that you get a rose-lathe guilloche, that is old style, not stamped guilloche, but the real deal, done with a cam system by a guillocheur, and you have options in terms of red, you have options in terms of blue, silver, black, or two-tone. The important thing is that Camblemine Cadran, which is the dial factory owned and operated by Kari Voutilainen, will be crafting the dials. You've seen some of their work in the past with Stepan Sarpaneva, and you've seen with the Grunefeld brothers, but this is the first time you can get their work, Camblemine, with a mirrored force resonance or any Armin Strom product. You also have your choice of different guilloche patterns. This is a true guilloche dial, by the way, guys, which is reductive and is always executed on machines dating back to time immemorial. You have your choice of sunray, you have your choice of barleycorn or concentric waves, which is actually the it's sort of like the pattern you see here, but a little bit more florid and billowy. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a machine powered by caliber ARF-15, an in-house movement that is manual wind made by Armin Strom. 48-hour power reserve by twin mainspring barrels. It uses, oddly, the same beat rate as the Omega coaxials, 25,200 vibrations per hour. Nicely executed. It's hand-finished, though not in Baroque fashion. Nicely executed, handsome, certainly, in my experience, finished to the degree you would expect, considering the price of 59,000 Swiss francs, or about a 5,000 Swiss franc premium over the conventional steel mirrored force resonance. Nicely executed. You can set the time zones to separate times, so it's not simply a parallel time, it's a true dual time with a zero recentering system to sync the seconds hands after about 10 minutes when the resonance takes effect. Roughly $60,500 US. Josh, politics aside,
okay,
and we could share, okay, I will say this. This is a different take on resonance. FP Journe has the original. There is a belief that this watch is not entirely authentic in its claim of the resonance effect.
Right.
That's as far as I'm going to go. That's in the public domain. I'm not revealing that. I will say that it is a completely different look on the wrist and a completely different fit than what FP Journe has established. Josh?
Yeah.
Who is this watch for and who is this watch not for? Okay, I know who it's not for, never mind. I know him. Aside from him, who would be into this watch for 60 grand?
Well, so, okay, Armin Strom is, a kind of a fringe brand. How many watches do they make a year?
Really only about, I want to say, maybe 2,000, maybe 1,500. Right. It's so, not a lot.
Small-time watchmaker. They have, a presence in the market. They don't tend to hold a lot of value, unfortunately, because there's not a huge market for the brand. It's a niche market, big time, right?
Yes.
So this watch is for somebody who wants something off the beaten path. There's a lot of guys out there who want to wear a watch that they'll never see anyone else wearing again. These are the kind of watches that they go for, right? So a lot of guys go for Laurent Ferrier, they go for FP Journe. Some people even go farther down the road and they go for Armin Strom. So this is a watch for somebody who wants something completely different, who likes watchmaking, who's interested in that kind of thing, in interesting complications, and also doesn't, they want something that's even less popular than like an FP Journe or Laurent Ferrier. Yeah.
And that's probably the truth there. I would say realistically their production is probably no more than 1,000 to 1,500 a year. I might even be high there. The customization, the fact that you can choose your color, you can choose your guilloche pattern. What really sets this apart from the FP Journe is the size and the visibility. Everything that's relevant to the the movement is actually on the dial side of this one, whereas FP Journe is all about the reverse of the case. If you want to actually see the resonance effect, you got to flip over your Journe and see your escapements, see your trains, see your balance wheels. So I would say this is somewhere between an Hublot and an FP Journe, which is an odd place to be aesthetically, but that's probably the way to describe it. It's outlandish, it's all there to see, and it's oversized, but it is legitimate in the watchmaking that goes into it. Whether it's the purest of pure resonance or not, I'm not going to opine. I have no professional opinion there, but it's definitely an interesting watch, and it's priced realistically, I think, for an independent.
I think, and then if you're able to purchase it second market, second hand or whatnot, you're getting it for a pretty large discount too. So it's interesting.
So. Interesting question coming from Triple D saying, hey Tim, I hope you guys are all right. Just picked up the HYT H2 I'm in love. Sadly, you haven't done a review. What's your opinion on it? Okay, so the HYT H2 was a significant step up in complexity compared to the original H1. The H1 was developed in conjunction with Chronode, whereas the H2 was developed in conjunction with Audemars Piguet Renault Papy. So that's an August name in the ultra haute de gamme. Think something along the lines of a Harry Winston Opus level watch. That's the level of complexity and greater cost. So it's a more beautiful version of the H1. It's certainly more automotive inspired in that the bellows of the hydromechanical system are arrayed in a V shape, like a, for instance, Ducati or Harley-Davidson engine. I know, pretty big spread there, two very different types of Vs, but that's the aesthetic. I think if you're the type who loves a car and you love the ultra haute de gamme and you have a budget to match, the HYT H2 is a great choice. And again, there are a million H1 variants. The H2 is far less common, far more exclusive, and in my opinion, just that much more special. My favorite remains the H0, but I think the HYT H2 probably is the gem in the lineup. It's certainly the one that fits the descriptor high horology in the most classical fashion while being very, very weird in its own right.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Okay, speaking of weird in its own right, this one's kind of for my mom. The Jaquet Droz Chinese New Year, Year of the Dog. Hey. Now, technically, the dog on the watch is a Pekingese, but that's not what I'm seeing. This one's for mom, who owns two of these poofy dust factories, otherwise known as Chin or Japanese Chin, and darned if that's not what I'm seeing on the smaller of the two offerings, the Petite Minute Dog. This is a 35mm watch set with 232 brilliant cut gems, featuring 28 pieces to be issued, all in rose gold, automatic winding. Here's the other one. I'm going to show you the other of the two. There are two series. This is the larger of the two. This is the Petite Minute Dog Relief. Okay, enough of that. So the one that's of more interest to mom features miniature painting on a Grand Faux enamel base, a white Grand Faux enamel base. So you have a miniature painted image of the Japanese Chin, automatic caliber 2653P, featuring twin mainspring barrels, silicone hairspring, 68-hour power reserve, and a hand-engraved rose gold rotor and 22 karat on the back. Josh, is this the most difficult watch of all time to sell on the secondary market? It's a small diamond-encrusted ladies painted dog watch.
Well, I'll say it now. I've said it before. I spend almost no time thinking about ladies' watches at all. So I'd say, the farther you get away from a Patek 24 or a Cartier Ballon Bleu, the harder it is to sell a ladies' watch, and I think this is about as far as it gets from either of these. So, yeah, I mean, this is not a watch you buy thinking about resale value. I mean, like we like to collect, you like to collect. I work in a market, so sometimes we get pigeonholed in thinking about, what's this worth or what's that worth. I think if you're spending money on this watch, you're certainly not thinking about what it's worth.
Yeah, and it must be the case because I haven't seen, along with the press release, which has just been disseminated across the internet, I have not seen a published price. Jaquet Droz's website has the watch and not the price. I guess it's the kind of thing where if you must buy this watch, you're not concerned about resale value. You can afford a very expensive piece of jewelry that also happens to tell time. And I think that's probably the best way to look at it, with the miniature painting angle being beautiful and unique and uncommon on jewelry watches. All right, Mom, that one's for you.
Jaquet Droz makes some really, really cool watches. Like, I think eventually I'll have one in my in my collection, like the Grand Second.
Oh yeah.
Great watch, doesn't look like anything else. It's very comfortable on the wrist, and you're not going to see too many people wearing those out there. So, you know, I like to have, like we've talked about before, like some mainstream pieces, some core pieces, and then just a bunch of funk, right? Yeah. So Parallels and Anonymous and things like that. And while the Jaquet Droz would be a step up from both those brands, it's a cool watch to have in the collection. You can pick them up at a pretty reasonable price.
All right, so the moral of the story is Mom's going to get one hell of a Christmas present in about 2 years. Let the market work its magic. Okay, so I have a question here from Billy T, who's looking for a daily beater that's swimmable, but he wants it from an independent brand. Josh, what would you recommend from an independent brand?
Is Bremont independent?
Yeah, Bremont's independent.
Bremont, I feel like you can definitely find a nice watch from Bremont. What was the price range? Did he put that in there?
He didn't say. He said it has to be a daily beater. It has to be swimmable. But I think you would be hard pressed to do much better than Bremont. Although I can think of a few others.
Oris is not independent, is it?
It is, but I don't think it's what he has in mind. I think he means like an independent, like AHCI or small series production brand. Okay, so Bremont would be the larger end of the scale. Look at the Supermarine collection, although almost all of their watches are at least 100 meters water resistant. So even if you're looking at one of the pilots, throw it on a rubber strap, it's still going to be very swimmable. But I would say look at the Supermarine S500s, very cool series. You know, sapphire capped rotating dive bezel, very wearable despite the size, very hail hardy, tough, hard to dent, hard to scratch, and you get the date function, which I love. Also consider Pita Barcelona, which at well under $10,000 is going to get you an extreme dive watch made in only a few dozen copies a year by a guy who is a member of the AHCI, alongside the likes of FP Journe and Kari, who is basically a two-horse operation with his son Daniel. That said,
Nomos also. There's a few guys dropping it down there. Nomos Ahoy, not for me, but big following in Nomos. They tend to hold value, so I don't mind selling them because I know I can buy them back and pay good money for to my customers. So Nomos Ahoy works also if you like the aesthetic, which not for me, but
yeah, I think Nomos you're going to be looking upwards of 50,000 watches a year, but they're definitely independent. I would also say take a look at Sin. Sin's worth your while. Tough watches.
If you're OJ Watley, you're gonna get a Sin.
Yeah.
I know he was always a big fan of Sin.
Look into Sin. I think you'll be very happy there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's important to acknowledge we've got a lot of friends joining us from around the world for now. I'm gonna give a shout out to some who have joined us. Marimo11, welcome. I can see the Giants fan from right up I-95 has joined us. David H is in the house. Captain Zed, longtime viewer. Todd Piasecki there. Val Blitz is with us. Eric Nielsen from frigid Northern Europe is joining us. Beauty of Scent and Roy Anderson, welcome. Also mentioning Damasco, good call. All right, so here is one that would almost meet your description. It's not an independent brand, but it's awfully affordable and pretty tough. It is the Longines Conquest VHP Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games Special Series. Now, Longines is the official timekeeper of the 21st Commonwealth Games. Since the 1930s, roughly every 4 years, the Commonwealth Games brings together all those places that used to be part of the British Empire. So roughly 70 nations, about 5,000 athletes, and I want to say over 250 individual athletic events. This watch is celebrating the Australian edition for 2018. It's 43 millimeters in stainless steel with a caseback engraved with the Games logo. You can see it's going to be in Queensland, Australia this year. And it's a handsome watch with a substantial bracelet and a full trigger actuated clasp. If you had to guess how much this costs, just based on the substance of it, you would not be wrong to guess $3,000, $4,000, $4,500. It looks the part. But I have to say the handsome commemorative colors expand the appeal of this watch beyond the 70 nations of the Commonwealth. I think red, white, blue, and black pretty much work almost everywhere, and it's done in a sort of muted, almost kind of fresco dilute coloration that makes it less overt than most colored dial effects. Finally, interesting Longines quartz caliber. Oh, I'm sorry, did I just lose half of you? Caliber L88, it's a base ETA 56. But here's the thing. Battery life of 94 months, plus or minus 5 seconds a year. That's the VHP, very high precision. That's impressive, even by Quartz standards. And it has an interesting system whereby if you shock it or expose it to a magnetic field, it will continue keeping time and gradually reset its hands to the proper position. And it has a perpetual calendar system to govern its date. So though you only see the date, you always and only see the correct date. Interesting system.
It's interesting.
And Josh, this might be one of the best valid answers to the perennial $1,000 watch question,
right?
Because this watch retails for about $13.75 Australian or $1,100 US.
Yeah.
Is this a good deal for $1,100? It seems like a lot of watch physically.
So I know a lot of people don't like Quartz, and I'm sure we lost a few people once that came out. But okay. There's a watchmaker we spoke about before that has kind of raised the boat, all boats rise type situation with Quartz, and that's Journe himself, of course. So for $11,000, you can buy the Elegant 48, which, in my opinion, makes Quartz a little bit more valid. So a watch like this that has a perpetual calendar module that controls the date, I mean, that's ridiculous. The dial looks great, and we talk about special editions. It doesn't have, the logo for the special edition or anything like that. It's just coloration, which is fantastic. There's just all sorts of lume in there, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely loomed.
All right,
it glows.
So for that, for all those reasons, yeah, of course, you can get a Quartz watch for cheap. You can go to Swatch, and you can go get one for $60 or whatever you want. But it's not this watch, and it's not going to have everything this has. So in this price range, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, the $1,000 watch question. I'm often accused of playing at the top end of the market and excluding the accessible watches. Here you go, guys. This is one for you. I would say that this is one of the more interesting $1,000 watch options, and from Longines, part of a major group that will be around forever and ever to service it. This is one that you can wear long term. A daily beater, properly priced. I would even bet that if you were to sell it secondhand, you could easily sell it for $500 or $600. And here's the thing, guys. If you buy a new Omega Dark Side of the Moon for $12,000, you're going to be getting out of that watch for like $6,500, $7,000, maybe $8,000 if you sell it privately. You're going to lose a lot of money in an absolute sense. Even if you lose half the value of an $1,100 watch, you're still getting out of it fairly comfortably. Yeah. And you're not losing much.
Yeah. And I mean, it's it's a brand that you can possibly talk to about considerations in regards to price as well. So there's that. I mean, it's a great watch.
And speaking of Quartz, and Josh alluded to this earlier, the men's Quartz, the Elegant 48, created by FP Journe in 2016, Captain Zed, one of our longtime viewers and customers at Gupper, has one arriving soon. Captain, thank you for trusting our company. You're going to love that watch. That's a special piece. And by the way, it officially made Quartz cool for guys in the modern era.
Here we go.
There we go.
There you go. This is why Quartz makes sense for me. I don't know if we can get rich up, but yeah, there you go. The Breitling Aerospace.
Is it set up?
Oh.
I don't think it's set up right now.
What do you mean? What's going on here?
I think you have to configure. I think you have to arm that feature.
Oh my God! Did I break the watch?
No,
whatever.
You have to arm that feature. But the bottom line.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wrist shot. There we go.
I love these watches. Breitling Aerospace.
Yeah.
I do think the minute repeater feature is disabled when the battery gets low, so you may want to check that.
Maybe I got to check my battery. All right, good call. But yeah, I mean, this is the most complicated Quartz watch you can find, and for pre-owned, you can find them for less than $2,000. Fantastic watch. I think right now the current version is like a $4,300 retail. So you can get something like this for $4,300, or for a quarter the price, you can pick up the Longines, which obviously doesn't have all the functions, but has the coolness factor and the presence that this has for sure.
Okay, so I hear some grousing about Quartz watches and Chinese dog watches. I can do better than that. Let's look ahead to the year 2018. By the way, guys, Josh is monitoring the chat box here. We've got more time built in today for your live questions than we usually have on This Week in Watches. We wanted the interactivity to be high since we're kind of short-staffed on camera work tonight. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the years to come. First, remember, you got to subscribe to the channel so you always know when we go live, and we're always interacting in the comment threads below the videos, so if you're watching this recorded, comment down there and I'll do my best to respond through the weekend. Okay, so what's happening this year? We already know IWC is going to be celebrating a major anniversary. That said, there are a couple that are not on the map but should be. I wouldn't be shocked if Omega is one of the first 2018 birthday boys to acknowledge with some sort of special series or anniversary model at Baselworld. Because this year, Omega turns, well, 170, sort of. Sort of.
Happy sort of birthday.
So the original La Générale Watch Corp was established in 1848 in Le Chaux-de-Fonds by Louis Brandt. Omega proper as a permanent brand was not established until 1903. That said, we're going to go back to the roots here, and Omega has used the Louis Brandt nomenclature in the past in special series. I think we might see some sort of acknowledgement. Also important, the 100th anniversary of La Générale in 1948 marked the first year that Omega's Seamaster series was produced. So although we saw the Seamaster as part of the trilogy set, the Seamaster 300 in 2017, the proper Seamaster as a water-resistant watch line, the first use of the name was 1948, and I don't think Omega is going to be able to resist the pull of two big anniversaries. We know they love special editions. Realistically, that first Omega Seamaster was more like today's Aquaterra lineup than the Planet Oceans or the Seamaster 300 dive watches, the professional series. So, since this is also the 10th anniversary of the 2008 refresh of the Aquaterra line, I wouldn't be shocked to see 1, 2, and 3 all put together in an interesting multi-anniversary Aquaterra model inside the Seamaster lineup. Omega, I'm counting on you guys. Watch this space. Okay, that said, I have a note on JLC. Of course, I received many questions from the field about my favorite brand. I own it exclusively, I collect it exclusively, and I'll be adding my minute repeater in 2018.
Drink.
That said, I'm going to limit myself to one JLC news item, comment, or answer per show. I know there's some sort of drinking game out there, guys. I'm not going to give you a chance. The new year's coming. There will be a time and a place for that. Today, I want to note that it's been 50 years since the original, well, actually, it has been 50 years since the E859 Polaris of 1968. It was not the first Polaris, but it was the definitive model. It's also 10 years since we saw the tribute to Polaris. JLC desperately needs to revive its sports watch line. I don't necessarily think we're going to see a revival of the Polaris lineup, but I do think that since it's 60 years since the original E168 Geophysic of 1958, this was an important one, Nautilus 90 North and the Commander got a Geophysic. I think that this is the year we're going to see the Geophysic line become a real sports watch lineup. Since it was revived in 2014, it's been in no man's land. It's not the sports watch that the Master Compressor was, and it's not the dress watch that the Master line is. It's uncomfortably close to both without stepping into either pool. So I think the 60th anniversary of a real sports watch, remember the Geophysic was shock resistant, water resistant, and anti-magnetic. We're going to see a hardcore Geophysic sports watch this year. I'm calling it. I have no privileged information. I actually know some of the stuff IWC is going to be revealing, and it's going to be neat, but I don't know what JLC is going to be launching. That said, I'm going to have a private showing with their novelties at SIHH. So again, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Okay. So, Josh?
Yep.
2008 was the year of the weird. Let's look back at some of the monstrosities, memorable for various reasons, that came out in 2008. Zenith at Baselworld 2008. Do you guys remember the Megaport Royal Tourbillon? No?
No.
There's a reason. Okay. And the weird ad campaign that went with it. I mean, so weird that people still talk about this Zenith ad campaign. Is that a scene from The Matrix? Right. Is it a Zenith ad? Is it a Zen catalog? I don't know.
Is he wearing two of them?
He is. He's double pumped.
Okay.
No better way to fight digital agents than with analog watches, right?
Yeah. You got the cage there to protect yourself from bullets and such.
Right, exactly. So that was weird. Zenith has come far, and I think for the best. Also, there was the AP Royal Oak Offshore Survivor 10 years ago. Just before the world fell apart, AP was ready. Josh, you've handled this watch. What's it like in person?
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before. You said that it's wearable on your wrist. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think the watch it would be cool in a collection, but I could never wear this watch. It looks... I hate to say it because I love AP. I don't even know if I should say it. Should I say it?
I'll say this. It could have been called the Survivalist. It's like an arsenal on your wrist. without making a political statement, it kind of is.
Yeah, it looks, listen, it looks like a watch made for, even though there's a lot of design put into it, design elements like triggers and whatnot, it looks like a watch that could have been made by a brand that we don't deal in.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'll go.
I'll be honest, it looks like it's about to explode.
Yeah.
That said, when you wear, believe it or not, this is a 42. I'm not kidding you. This is classed as one of the 42s.
But all their 42s wear like 44s, and a lot of times, you know, a lot of dealers have been posting them for that until they started making the 44s, you know, mainstream.
Yeah, this thing wears like a Barrett 50. I mean,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
I see like grenade pins, I see a muzzle brake, I see triggers, I see a bullseye.
It's a watch for Jason Maine for sure.
Yes, yes, and it's sharp enough to cut. I mean, this is a really cool watch, and they made 1,000 of them, so they all found happy homes.
Oh yeah.
But this was an apocalyptic watch made for the financial apocalypse and the world beyond.
That's right. Yeah, I wondered how well they sold that at that time. Now thinking back.
I'm not really sure because the world was on fire about 6 months after this thing came out. No one really remembered what happened to watches in the Maelstrom.
Let's put this in perspective. I have a customer offering me a Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that he purchased in 2008. And we're not going to discuss what he paid for it, but he didn't pay list.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, this is a watch right now that is online used selling for $41,000. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on in 2008.
In its defense, I like it. God is in the details here. It's beautifully made in the hand. It impresses. Everything is finished in the same gorgeous fashion you'd find on a Royal Oak Jumbo. It's just in a style that is incredibly controversial. And
polarizing, to say the least.
When I say God is in the details, I mean like, not like the benevolent Jesus Christ or a Hindu god. I mean like Ares, god of war. I mean that god.
Thanos. There you go. All right.
So, or the actual inspiration for Thanos' dark side. But I digress. That's getting into comic book paraphernalia. Okay, so remember, this was the same year that Rolex's Deep Sea Sea Dweller came out. Even Rolex was in on the act. 18 millimeters thick, guys. Need I say any more? Big and bold, that's another one of our anniversary to come candidates for, I would say something big might happen with Rolex, since Rolex has 2 anniversary watches celebrating their 10th this year. More on that in a moment.
Yeah.
Josh, what is history going, what is the verdict on the Deep Sea Sea Dweller? Well, how are we going to look back on this watch in 50 years?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be, it's a watch that a lot of people liked in theory. People like me, and probably even you, couldn't pull it off.
I certainly can't. No. Maybe on my leg.
Yeah. So it's a watch that in the black dial variant took a bit of a nosedive in regards to resale value, unlike any of the other models. Which right now you see what's happening. A lot of them are above their listed retail price, which is crazy. So it's an interesting piece. It was a step forward with Rolex, but then you noticed at that same time, what did they have? They had the first 41 millimeter date just and day date, right in that around that era, which they've scaled down the day date and even the 41
came out that year too.
Right, exactly. So they had the 41 millimeter day date, which went from a 36 to a 41. So large watches in 10 years ago were a thing. Panerai was in its heyday, really, too, right? So
Panerai didn't seem weird back then. They were saying, "Oh my God, 44 millimeters. We may have to make more of the 47s."
Right. Yeah, 47s, 48s, 50 millimeter watches. So at the time, it kind of fit in. I don't know 50 years from now how it's going to look, you know, depending on when and if they discontinue this model. I think if they discontinue it on its 10th birthday, I think that it can become a really iconic piece that will, you know, down the road will be something that'll be collectible. If they keep making it in perpetuity, it's going to be, you know, just like every other Rolex, which is strong seller. It's a cool watch, but it's not going to be anything that's going to be iconic.
I think they're going to, I think there's a better than a 50% chance that they discontinue it this year. 10 years after it came out, the year after they launched the now definitive Sea Dweller, the 43, the anniversary, it seems like it's a bit of an overlap to have a 44 and a 43 millimeter Sea Dweller.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, the watch had a really strong second stage to it after the 2014 launch of the Deep Sea Deep Blue.
Right.
That was and remains a fairly hot watch.
That's the hot version of this watch, yeah.
So I think in the future, we look back on this almost, it'll never be discussed along things like the Deep Sea Special or the Comex Sea Dwellers, because they made more than that.
Right.
But it'll be looked at as an interesting period piece, and I think someday we might look back on it the way we look back on the 70s design of the Oyster Quartz, or we look back on,
Love Oyster Quartz.
The first generation Milgauss or the Milgauss 1019 and say, you know what, that deep sea was an anomaly, but it's a cool period piece, and you get a lot of watch for your money. I think someday people will collect these, and remember, the best clasp Rolex has ever made.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's totally true.
I think
all the sliding adjustments in the new subclass, I guess, were an offshoot of this, right?
Yeah. It's also important to remember that this is 10 years since the Hublot Big Bang King 48mm diver.
Don't make those anymore.
The Corum Admiral's Cup 48. This was the era when big was better, but biggest was best.
Right.
And it was the height before the fall, just before the crash.
JLC, even the what is it?
The Reverso Squadras, the compressor extremes.
Right, yeah, exactly. Massive watches were really, I mean, even when I started getting into this industry, I was on the tail end of the massive watch movement. Yeah. So now, when you see, like, Rolex pays attention to their market, so they scaled down everything. Even the Datejust, that from the Datejust 2 to the Datejust 41, the proportions are better. It's a little bit slimmer. Like, they realize, hey, let's get ahead of this. Let's start scaling things down. Even, I mean, Panerai, you have the Douai, and they're investing in their 1940s radiometer. So you see kind of where the market has gone. It makes more sense that it's going to more of a reasonable watch size.
You're seeing, we're still pegging back from the excess of this era. Remember, 2008 was the year JLC gave us the Gyro Tourbillon 2. You know what we really need? We need a precious metal Reverso with a multi-axis tourbillon, and all of it the size of a fist. That would look good on a skinny Tim Masso wrist. I wasn't a player for JLC back then, so they couldn't have anticipated.
You'd still wear it,
Yeah,
though.
They didn't know that watch was sized to wear around my neck. All right.
Dog collar.
So other anniversaries, the Glasuta Original Pano Inverse XL, possibly the watch that better expresses the brand values and invention than anything else. This might be their one full-fledged hit and iconic piece.
Yeah, I mean, watch is still selling well now. I mean, that's a great watch. You know, we talk about Glashut and you know what they bring to the market. Unfortunately, not. Their marketing and distribution is not the greatest, so the resale value is not amazing. But that is their best-selling watch, I believe, and it's a stunning piece, right? Like when you wear that watch, you're going to get some attention from people who don't know watches, people who do know watches, and it's a tweener in regards to like being a sport watch and being a dress watch. I think that's their best reference, right?
Absolutely, no question. They're most distinctive. Something that was entirely them too. No one else did a style like this. And it features the stunning duplex swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, which was not seen for the first time in this model, but arguably came into its own and became an icon of the manufacturer from Saxony. This is the only Geo that from across the room you won't mistake for a JLC, a Vacheron, or a Lange. Right. This is brand identity incarnate, and I would love to see a sports version of this just for kicks, because they need a sports watch.
But that being said, be careful. Don't bastardize the best watch you have.
Yeah. Keep the original. Yeah. Keep the original.
Yeah.
But, okay, Mont Blanc. This is a brand that I feel is going places, but more because of the Minerva stuff than the stuff being done at the Leloc mass manufacturer. But in 2008, you could have been you could have been forgiven for mistaking this for the future of the brand. This was the Nicolas Rieussec chronograph, 72-hour power reserve, column wheel vertical clutch exclusive chronograph caliber. It was distinctive. It was in-house. It was something approaching high horology in a mass market, relatively affordable, like $11,500 Mont Blanc. This wasn't like the $50,000, $60,000 watches coming out of Villeray. This was the hot watch of the moment, and for a few years it had a lot of momentum. Now we hardly ever see it.
Yeah.
What happened?
I mean, Mont Blanc as a watch brand really doesn't. They don't invest, I think, enough into their marketing. I think this is a watch that really they could hang their hat on. It's similar to the Geo Pano Inverse. You know, when we see these come up pre-owned, you know, when they're being offered to us, we're happy to buy them. That's not, you know, same couldn't be said for all Mont Blancs. So that's the case with those watches. I don't know. It didn't really catch on. I don't think that maybe their marketing. I don't know about their distribution. I don't know what they did in order to really cement this watch as being like a forerunner for their brand. I don't know if they did that at all, but they could have, and it could have worked, but they didn't.
What happened is that the brand has actually succeeded in watchmaking, but it's moved to two poles. There are, you know, your time walkers and your stars. There are your watches priced well under $10,000 that often feature Sellita, ETA, or calibers adopted from elsewhere in the Richemont group. And then you have the true Villeray-made watches, of which a few hundred are made each year. So you have these high horology timepieces, and then you have very accessible timepieces that compete roughly with, I would say, Longines to Omega. There's some overlap.
Yeah.
And the Riosec got caught uncomfortably between those two successful campaigns. So I don't know what the future holds for this now 10-year-old line. This was supposed to be the future of Mont Blanc. They succeeded, but maybe not the way we would have expected in 2008. I'm interested in seeing whether this particular model line gets some sort of a second stage or a second look in 2018. Okay. The lord of them all, Rolex. Obviously, big was best. Big was better. Biggest was the bestest. And Rolex was all about it with the Date 82 and the Deep Sea. But there was one in there for the quasi-purists, and it was the Submariner 116619LB. This was the first of the sub-Cs and the first super case sub. Yes, it wears like a 42. Yes, it wears bigger than previous subs. But you know what? Its size and its wrist presence has aged well, especially in stainless steel form. 10 years after we first saw this white gold piece as the first of that family, I don't know. Could we see a redesign of the sub? Would Rolex shock us that way 10 years later?
I was talking to some, a full redesign, or maybe like a, so the first ceramic sub was this Smurf here, which is an amazing watch. It's had its ups, it's had its downs. Right now, it's a strong piece. I was talking to someone in my office about what may happen with the Hulk, and you know, will they discontinue it? And there's rumors that they may. And in my opinion, what they should do, I don't think they will do, but and it would be amazing if they discontinued the white gold Smurf and then replaced it with a yellow gold Hulk. Yeah, I mean, it works. I think it works. Think about it, guys. If you're thinking right now, just go ahead and think. Sit for okay, you're thinking it works. I mean, just Google a Hulk and just imagine that being in yellow gold. I think that works. I think that would be a great replacement for this watch, and it would be a nice anniversary piece. I
want to say that Rolex hasn't touched the sub in a while.
They haven't.
I don't believe we've seen since 2013 when the two-tone went from the lacquered dial back to the sunburst. I don't think we've seen any real changes to the sub.
I prefer the lacquered, by the way.
Yeah. There's a future collector piece if you're all about the Rolex dial variations.
Oh yeah, it's found that two-tone blue. It's perfect.
I would say there's no natural Rolex anniversary this year other than 10 years since the Sub C, and it's been a long time since Rolex has kicked that anthill. The Sub is Rolex. It's not something they approach lightly.
No.
I would be shocked if they made only a subtle variation. I think you're going to see something spectacular along the lines of the 2016 steel ceramic Daytona, like something that reimagines the watch, even if it doesn't necessarily mean a second generation.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, no matter what we do or what we guess, we'll never be right. I think last year we were talking about a stainless steel Coke GMT or like a re-edition of the Milgauss. And I think, well, we threw a lot of things against the wall, and there was one that was right, which was the Sea Dweller that we talked about. But, I mean, with Rolex, you never know. They pay attention to the market. They're essentially never wrong, and if they are wrong, they immediately correct themselves. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the sub, like you said, they're not taking it lightly. They're not throwing anything against the wall when it comes to sub.
So I think that brings us to our conclusion. I do want to remind you guys there are a couple of other anniversaries that I want to shout out. 10 years since LVMH bought Hublot. It's become Hublot, only more so. And 10 years since Richemont bought Roger Dubuis. I would argue that the watches are more interesting and the line is better balanced and better thought out now than it was at the tail end of the Carlos Diaz era. And it's been 10 years since the Tudor Iconaut. If you want controversy, look no farther. I think that's a future collectible, by the way, guys. And finally, It has been 10 years since we saw the Vacheron Constantin Historique 1921 American. I wouldn't be shocked to see a mild update of that one this year. Finally, guys, I want to remind you, the hits keep on coming on Instagram with Tim_Mosso, updated daily. I'm interacting in the chat boxes alongside all of my photos. So whether you open up a new window, open up your Instagram app, definitely follow me at Tim_Mosso, and I will be active every day throughout this short holiday weekend. Guys, remember, if you didn't get what you wanted, return all that crap and then visit our new website at thewatchbox.com. For the final time, 2017, I'm Tim, he's Josh. And what do we say?
Well, thanks for logging on, right?
That's right.
All right.